us and an amazing amount of flame and heat. But the community, we did resolve to rebuild it, and we did, and then we even expanded it, which just helped us, as I think as a community, kind of get beyond the event. Although I don't know anyone who has forgotten, because that question would come up periodically about, well, did we ever catch the guy? Well, the people that didn't forget about it was Detective Fell and the people he worked with at the police station. Every day it sat on his desk, as I understand, and so it was constantly front of mind as he went about day to day doing the things that our police department does for us without us even knowing. And so while maybe you and I it kind of dropped off of our consciousness every day, it didn't for the detective and all the police and all the members of the police department. So on behalf of every child of Yuma, of all the parents and the grandparents, people who grew up on that original build, the people who built the original park, I'd like to thank Detective Fell and the Yuma Police Department for all their hard work. If you join me in a round of applause for them. And just a side note, since this is just an arrest and not a conviction yet, we will be watching this as it moves forward through the court system, but it's something that I'm confident that our men and women in uniform have got this squared away. So thank you very much, and I'll turn over to City Administrator Wilkinson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo some of the mayor's comments. You know, we have a great police department, we have a great detective force. You know, we've seen some of these cases that are really difficult with very little evidence or not evidence. You know, it took a while to solve the La Mesa case, and it took a while to solve this, but, you know, this, in my mind, although it was a heinous event and it affected the community, this kind of brings closure that we put the person responsible at least up for trial and hopefully behind bars. But a lot of credit goes to you know, the detectives. Detective Fell led this, and I know there's a lot of resource that he has, and I think he'll be available for some questions. But, you know, bringing closure to this, I think, was really important to the community, and everybody that helped get this done. You know, when the fire happened, obviously it was devastating to the entire community and the children that put it together. So at least now we can bring final closure to it. So thank you.
And at this point in time, this is kind of your opportunity for the media to, we will entertain some questions that we can answer up here.
Is the suspect in custody?
He is currently incarcerated in the Yuma County Adult Detention Facility.
Is this the same Kane Perez who was arrested in relation to that shooting that took place with officers a couple weeks ago?
If you're referring to the shooting that occurred on August 1st at 22nd Street and Madison Avenue, yes, he is.
Can you review what the circumstances were to the fire, how it started? Is there anything you can say about that?
I'm going to turn that over to Detective Phil.
Good morning. So in reference to your question, ma'am, can't go into detail into the case, but after the fire had occurred, immediately investigators from both the police department and the fire department began to talk to witnesses, look for evidence. We had a video system on there, which we eventually released the feed. But what we do know is that on the night in question, on the 28th of December, the last visitors to the park, legitimate visitors to the park, were at 9:25 that night. After they left, the video then showed at 9:25 a younger looking male on a bicycle with a backpack and dark clothing go into the park. He then left that park at 10:42 that night. And then we got our 911 calls at 10:49, but then at 10:50 the motion sensitive cameras reactivated when it picked up the fire. And so from there, the investigation went into social media, it went into just witnesses, speaking to all the 911 operators. The huge number of tips that came in from the community, each one of those were processed, were looked at. every potential lead had to either be confirmed or had to be ruled out as a possible suspect. And it wasn't until midway through 2017 when there was finally a suspect that was unable to be ruled out at that point, and that's when it was the investigation focused on Kane Perez. And then eventually we spoke to him once. He didn't eliminate himself, he actually made himself more of a suspect, and then we spoke to him again on the 6th of August 2018, where he did give a confession in detail to the event.
Is he the only suspect?
At this time, he's the only suspect that we have in this case. Yes, ma'am.
In his admittance to doing this, or in his confession, did he say why he did it?
He did give indicators why he gave it, but at this time we can't go into those details. Those will come out during the proceedings with the county attorney's office.
So he was 14 when this happened, because he's 17 now.
He was 13 at the time when the fire happened.
Is he related to other fires around the city?
At this time, he's not a suspect in any other fires around the city.
Do you know if he falls for gang?
We do have information about possible gang ties. I can't go into the details about that. That will be part of the prosecution with the county attorney's office.
Is there any timeline on the process that can make the arrest to the expect charges to come forward? Is there any timeline?
There is a timeline, but there's a lot of mitigating circumstances to that based off defense proposals and the prosecution of it. If they want to handle it at the juvenile level, remand it to adult court. So there's a lot of things that I'm not privy to.
Once again, thank you for your attendance and questions. I would just like to remind everybody that even though there is some closures, as City Administrator Wilkinson alluded to, this is just a chapter in the criminal justice system, and it has an important chapter still to go through, and that would be actually through the county attorney's office, and that's part of the justice system. So the case is in their hands now, and I'm sure more events will follow after that point in time. Thank you, and that'll end this press conference.